we're covering final strategies and common traps for the California real estate exam. To pass, you must prioritize 7 key areas: practice and disclosures, agency, ownership, valuation, financing, transfer, and contracts. A huge portion of your exam will come from these topics, so focus your final review here. Let's start with a common trap involving the Department of Real Estate, or DRE. The exam will test your knowledge of the DRE's authority to discipline licensees. A typical question might describe a scenario where a broker fails to supervise a salesperson who commits fraud. The DRE can discipline both the salesperson for the act and the broker for the failure to supervise. Remember, the ultimate goal of the DRE is consumer protection. Another major trap is trust fund handling. This is one of the most common violations found in DRE audits. The exam will try to confuse you between commingling, which is mixing client funds with your personal or business funds, and conversion, which is using those client funds for your own purposes. Both are illegal, but conversion is a more serious offense. A question might state that a broker deposited a client's good faith deposit into their personal account to cover office rent. This is a clear case of conversion, and the likely penalty would be license suspension or revocation. Agency relationships, specifically dual agency, are also heavily tested. Dual agency is legal in California but requires written disclosure and consent from both parties. An exam question might describe an agent representing a buyer who becomes interested in one of the agent's own listings. The agent must disclose the dual agency relationship as soon as this conflict arises and before the offer is written. Failing to do so is a serious breach of fiduciary duty. Now let's talk about disclosures. A cornerstone of California real estate practice, you must know the difference between the Transfer Disclosure Statement, or TDS, and the Natural Hazard Disclosure, or NHD. The TDS covers the seller's knowledge of the property's condition. The NHD discloses if the property is in specific hazard zones, like flood, fire, or earthquake fault zones. A classic exam trap involves TDS exemptions. For example, sales in a probate, foreclosure, or between co-owners are generally exempt from providing a TDS. However, even exempt sellers cannot conceal known material facts. Regarding property taxes, Proposition 13 is a frequent topic. Prop 13 limits property taxes to 1% of the assessed value at the time of purchase, plus an annual inflation factor of no more than 2%. A common question will test the reassessment trigger. A property is reassessed to its current market value only upon a change in ownership or new construction. Finally, pay close attention to the wording in contracts and contingencies. The exam loves to use absolute words like always or never to trick you. Real estate law is full of exceptions. For example, a contingency for a loan approval is not the same as a contingency for funding the loan. The wording matters immensely, and the exam will test your ability to spot these critical differences. A good mnemonic to remember the core topics is, don't argue over value, find the contract. This stands for disclosures, agency, ownership, valuation, financing, transfer, and contracts. Focusing on the traps within these areas will significantly boost your score. For free practice questions, AI-powered explanations, and more exam prep tools, visit openexamprep.com. That's openexamprep, all one word, .com.